He's an associate professor of law at South Texas College of Law and joins us now from Washington. Thank you for joining us. We heard the president and Republicans say they want a true conservative that doesn't legislate from the bench. Explain what that means exactly.
President Trump did something pretty remarkable in putting together a list of 25 candidates. And this allows the American public to vet these people in advance. And I think this is a solid list. The people on this list have shown a commitment to textualism, that is following the text of the Constitution, originalism, that is trying to find out what the Constitution meant at the time it was ratified, and as a general matter, having respect for the separation of powers and federalism. And I think this list is solid. You could throw a dart at this list, and I think I'd be happy with whoever, whichever name it hits.
Speaking of the separation of powers, does this embolden the president, the fact that he will have two justices on the bench that he handpicked? Will that embolden him in his policymaking?
I think it's very difficult to predict. In fact, this year, Justice Gorsuch ruled against President Trump in a couple cases. Very often, justices do things you don't predict they will. And if anything, the judges that are being appointed might have a greater skepticism of the executive power with respect to the administrative state. So there could be reasons why these nominees might actually vote against Trump in the future.
Who do you think are the frontrunners from that list?
Well, I think at the top of your broadcast, Jan Crawford, who was pretty well sourced, put a few names forward, and I think that's a pretty good short list. She noted Judge Brett Kavanaugh, who's a judge in the District of Columbia, Mulitha Parr, who's a judge in the Sixth Circuit in Kentucky, another judge from the Sixth Circuit, Raymond Kethledge from Michigan, Amy Coney Barrett, who's from Indiana, and also Tom Hardiman, who's a federal judge in Pittsburgh on the Third Circuit. These are all wonderful nominees. These people have been vetted before, and I think really the president can't go wrong with this list.
Now, the president's about halfway through his term. What do you think this retirement will do for his legacy?
For the past generation, Justice Kennedy has been the deciding vote on almost every major issue. Gay marriage, affirmative action, abortion, he's at the center of these issues. That's no longer the case. We're entering a brave new world where we don't quite know what this means. Long after Donald Trump's out of office, his nominee is Neil Gorsuch, and the next one will still be on the bench, and they will be affecting public policy for decades to come. It's a pretty remarkable aspect of the legacy.
And on that note, the president has said on the campaign trail and otherwise that he would only appoint pro-life justices who would overturn Roe v. Wade. Do you really think that there could be a legal end to abortion in America?
I don't think there's much of an appetite to go back to the 1970s. What I do think is much more likely is that the court will uphold increasingly restrictive elements of abortion laws. So perhaps if Justice Kennedy might have struck down a ban on, say, 20-week abortion bans, the next nominee may uphold those bans. So Roe will stay where it is, but I think more abortion laws will be subject to a more deferential standard of review by the courts.
How have you seen things play out when a president has two appointees on the bench? For example, when President Obama appointed Sonia Sotomayor and Elena Kagan.
President Obama's two nominees more or less maintained the status quo. Sotomayor replaced Justice Souter, and Kagan replaced Justice Stevens, both liberals. Here, President Trump will have a replacement for Scalia, who was a conservative, and Kennedy, who was the moderate, the middle guy. So this will actually shift the court decidedly to the right.
What are the other issues you're looking at that could be possibly affected by the president's pick?
We think of the administrative state, how much are courts going to scrutinize the actions of various bureaucratic agencies. The issue of affirmative action may come back to the fore, as well as issues of war powers, engaging foreign policy overseas, detention at the borders. These are all very big issues which I think will eventually come to the court with two Trump nominees on the bench.
Josh Blackman, thank you so much.
Thank you.